So today, let's talk about positionality, judgment, and the senses. First, positionality. That is taking a position or a side. For instance, during this time of year, no, not Christmas time, but rather the season where many follow, yes, you guessed it, football. Something very obvious happens. People take sides. Let's talk about choosing a team to root for versus choosing a team to root against. Now, when choosing a team to root for, the fan is usually gung-ho about their team, even though they will eventually find fault with their team, many times. Finding fault even with the team the fan supports seems to be part and parcel of being a fan. If not an art, it is a very involved and detailed activity. And if the fan does not rip apart his team every now and again, he may not even be considered a real fan. Now, finding fault with the team that the fan is against or opposed to is not quite so much of an art as it is, many times, just a brutal and savage way of dispensing aggression. And if someone following a football game has a vested interest in the outcome of the game, like someone who bets on the games, they will develop aggressive tendencies. Almost never does a fan learn to love through this process of competitiveness. To the fan, these antics are normal and accepted by the vast majority of individuals who participate in this ritual of sitting in front of a TV on Saturday and Sunday. The majority of these individuals have never played the game, but they are the experts, believe me. Just talk to them. Now, all of this occurs because the fan took a side. That's positionality. All of us have positions or sides that we take. We have religious positions, ethical ones, moral positions, economic positionalities, opinions about taxes, lawmakers, Congress, the Senate, the current president, the last president, the one before that, and the one before that. We have opinions about the foods we eat, the foods that others eat, how someone looks, especially if they are overweight or worse, obese. We wonder if they work out. We talk to ourselves all day long about everything and anything that we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. We're going to get back to that. Is that person using an iPhone or an Android? Do they still use Google searches, or have they advanced to using DuckDuckGo? You mean they're still using Google? Don't they get it? Why are they still using Google? Haven't they awoken to what Google has been doing the past few years? These are all opinions, which become positions or positionalities. Our opinions are our positions. We have many of them. We have enough to share with others and still have a lot left over. And at this point in our lives, we have them before we ever meet anyone else, thereby allowing us to cast judgment onto another prior to ever meeting that person. Not everybody does this, but a lot of people do that. Now, our positions are not necessarily right or wrong. They're simply our beliefs, but they are limiting almost every single one of them. When we meet anyone, it can be, it should be a holy encounter. In other words, as we see that person, we see ourselves. As we treat that person, that's the way we treat ourselves. As we think of that person, that's how we think of ourselves. Never forget this, for in another we either find ourselves or lose ourselves. If we have opinions, which we all do, we are predisposed before we ever have the opportunity to judge properly. To judge properly, one must have wisdom. I do not know personally anyone who has wisdom. The goal of what I am teaching is simple. It is know thyself. If we know ourselves, we have wisdom. We are wise. There is nothing else to seek. Now, we are all looking for ourselves and for the power and glory we have lost. And some people, very few, know all of this. For the power, and we're looking for the power and glory we have subconsciously lost. We subconsciously believe we have lost. And in this dream in which we live, because we subconsciously believe what we believe, it is so. Because we subconsciously believe that we have lost our power and glory, we have thus lost our power and glory. So whenever we are with anyone, we have another opportunity to find ourselves. But first, we have to see it in others before we can see it in ourselves. Why? Because we have been taught, most of us, to put others first. When we were children, we were taught that. And even though as adults we don't necessarily do that, we were taught when young to put others first. Therefore, putting others first is a subconscious belief that drives us, even though we may be very selfish as an adult. Remember, it is our subconscious beliefs that run the operating system within us. Whatever is in our subconscious mind is what is controlling us, unless we have specifically worked to change the subconscious thoughts. Since most of us have not done that, we are ruled by that which we were taught as kids. So if we want our power and glory back, we have to see it in others. There's no other way. Why? Because we were taught to put others first. Not just some others, but all others. Now, the ego tries to help us find our power and our glory only in ourself, with a small s, because it knows not where to look. So it has us look selfishly at only ourself. Again, small case s. Holy Spirit teaches that if we look only at ourself, we will not find ourself, because that is not what we are. We are everyone, and everyone is us. Give another their place in the kingdom, and we will have ours. As we give, we receive. As we get, we lose. Let me make that simpler and explain that. As we give, we receive. Everyone agrees with that, except for those who trade the stock market. As we go about getting and accumulating, we lose, as receiving is accepting, not getting. We can ask of Spirit then only by giving to Spirit. And we can give to Spirit only where we recognize Spirit in others. If we recognize Spirit in everyone, consider how much we are giving. And the more we give, the more we receive. Spirit will deny us nothing, as we have denied neither Spirit nor anyone else nothing, because we have shared everything. Now, I'm going to go back to 2 points I already made. First, I spoke about judging another, and I also said that we talk to ourselves all day long about anything and everything we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. Those are the senses. But no one can judge on partial evidence, as that is not judgment. What do you mean? I saw what happened. And I say, you didn't see jack split. It is merely an opinion when you judge another based on ignorance and doubt. It seems certainty when you're certain about what you saw. Certainty is only a cloak for the uncertainty it conceals. It needs a rational defense because it is irrational. And its defense seems strong, convincing, and without a doubt because of all the doubting that goes on underneath, subconsciously. So you are not aware of it. None of us are. That's why it's called subconscious. For instance, we do not seem to doubt the world we see. We do not really question what is shown us through the body's eyes. On the same token, we do not doubt what we see or hear on the news. Nor do we ask why we believe it, even though we learned long ago that our senses deceive and the news is designed to disseminate fear. Fear sells. Yet we believe it. What the hell? That we believe our senses to the last detail is even stranger when we pause to recollect how frequently they have been faulty witnesses. Why do we trust them so implicitly? Well, how else are we going to do things? Someone might respond. How can we judge appropriately? Our judgment rests upon the witness that our senses offer us. In other words, our judgment is based on our senses. Yet our senses almost never provide an accurate account of the truth. Witness is never falser than our very own senses ever existed. You've heard me tell this story before. In the 1970s, psychologists began to teach law enforcement officials that 5 witnesses to a car accident, all telling 5 different stories, did not indicate anyone was lying. In other words, our senses are so inaccurate that to rely on them is just stupid. But how else will we judge the world we see? We place pathetic faith in what our eyes and ears report to us. We believe our fingers actually touch reality and close in upon the truth. This is the awareness that we depend upon and understand, that we think is more real than what is witnessed to by the voice within, the voice of spirit that we all have. So can what we do that is using the senses to make decisions be properly called judgment? We have often been encouraged to refrain from judging others, not because it is a right to be withheld from us, but because we simply cannot judge with any degree of accuracy. Why? Because we use our senses to make judgments, more appropriately to cast judgments. But the senses of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling are all of the body. Well, you're saying, yeah, duh, no kidding. Well, that also means they are not of the spirit. They are of the body. And as I have said many times, we are not the body. But because we use the senses to judge, that means we are using the body, and the body is the domain of the ego, and the ego is always false, always untrue, 100% of the time. It guides our senses carefully to prove how weak we are. Remember growing up in your teenage years? Remember your self-confidence, or lack thereof? How helpless and afraid you may have felt? How apprehensive of punishment? How black with sin we were? How wretched in our guilt? There are some that I know who never felt that. But that seems to be the minority, the vast minority. This thing it speaks of, it tells us, is us, ourself. This thing the ego speaks of and presents us with, it tells us is ourself. And we believe that this is so, with stubborn certainty. I'm just a lowlife. I can't do anything right. Just ask any Catholic. Yet underneath remains the hidden doubt that what it shows us as reality, with such conviction, the ego itself does not believe. It is itself alone that it condemns. It is within itself it sees the guilt. It is its own despair that it casts upon us. But we buy it as though it's ours. We need to learn to not listen to this voice that tells us throughout our life that we have problems that need to be worked on. We have issues that only a therapist can address. We need to learn to no longer listen to this silly voice. It's not something to hate. It's something to regard as silly. The witnesses it sends to us to prove its lack is our own are false. And our faith in them is blind because we do not know another way of being. So for me to say that our senses are not what we should rely on doesn't sound right to any of you listening to this for just once or twice or a few times, as we have always relied on our senses to get along and maneuver in this world. And we feel sad about the blind person or the deaf person because they lack one of their senses. Yet we must learn to doubt the so-called evidence of the senses in order to clear the way to begin to recognize ourselves and let the voice for God be judge of what is worthy of our own beliefs. You read the biographies of those who are worthy to read the biographies of, such as Ramana Maharshi or Nisargadatta or Yogananda. Yeah, they are all Indians on the other side of the planet. And they figured it out. And there are people like Gary Renard and David Hawkins and many, many more who are in the West, and they figured it out. They do something every day. And while they were alive, they did something every day. So listening to that voice within, many call this intuition. Many have learned to meditate and rely upon the voice that is within. But remember, as I said last week, there are two voices. Two voices within, and which one do you listen to? Which one do you choose? Which one is your default? If we are not meditating or going within, there's a strong possibility that the voice that is heard, listened to, and obeyed is the voice of the ego. And that's when you have to stop listening to and hear the other voice until that other voice becomes louder and louder and louder, because that's what you choose to listen to. Our life is not part of anything we see. It stands beyond the body and the world, past every witness for unholiness. In everyone and everything, Spirit's voice speaks to us of nothing but ourself, with a capital S, and our Creator. And as a result, we will see the face of Christ in everyone, not Jesus Christ, but the Christ that is within everyone. We will see the face of Christ in everyone and everything, and hear in everything no sound except the echo of God's voice. That's a place to be. I have experienced it. I know others who have experienced it. I've also, during my lifetime, let it go. I've gotten it back. I've let it go. I've gotten it back. How? I'd either meditate or stop meditating. I know which one to choose. There are many out there who have no clue. Start to learn. Know yourself. And you will have every joy, every happiness, and peace. So everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.